Explosive power is one of the most important and sought after qualities for athletes in most sports. It determines how hard you punch in boxing, whether you can dunk in basketball, change of direction, sprinting and much more. Power is easily mistaken as strength, but they're two different things actually. Power is a product of force multiplied by velocity, or simply put, speed strength, the combination of speed and strength in sports context. Unfortunately, power is also one of the most complex areas to understand, and things can be very contradictory when studying it. Some people say do heavy lifting, others say don't, some say only work with light weights, others say do heavy weights. And this video will consist of a mixed method approach when it comes to training power, and I will simplify it the best I can. So when training for power, it is often divided into those 5 components. Let's go through each and every one of them. First we have slow velocity strength. This is basically maximal strength training. Heavy repetitions, heavy squats, heavy deadlifts, bench press. It's basically movements that you have to utilize a lot of force, and inevitably the movements won't be very fast because they're heavy, of course. So why is strength training foundational to explosive power, you say? Well, it accounts for the force portion in the so-called power equation. Strength could be seen as a threshold for power. Without a base of strength, power will be useless, and also without speed, power will be useless. They are both foundational. So when you're training for maximal strength, you want to keep an intensity of 70 to 90% of your 1 rep maximum, and 1 to 5 reps in each set. Some popular rep schemes are the 3x3 or 3x5, you can even do 4x2. It varies, it depends. If you want to learn more about this, you can study Prippelin's chart and the concept of relative intensity. This can be looked up in Tudor Bompa's work as well. There are many ways you can do maximal strength training. Compound lifts will give you the best bang for the buck because they train multiple muscle groups simultaneously and they're sport specific. I can't say exactly which lift will be the most beneficial to you because they vary depending on your sport, but generally you'll do 1 or more variation from this following list. There's squat variations, pressing variations, pulling variations, and deadlift variations. Next we have rate of force development. The key for this type of training will be to do all of your actions as explosively and fast as you can. This is basically speed training, it will train your speed. Therefore, you will use little to no resistance and do your movements as fast as possible. Going against light resistance will enable you to produce fast movements and therefore become fast. If you were to use heavy resistance here, you wouldn't be able to produce fast movements, so the resistance is very important here. Rate of force development will train your velocity in the power equation. The point of this training method is to teach your brain to produce fast movements at will. It will teach you to recruit multiple motor units and fast twitch muscle fibers, also known as a type 2X. As you may know, we have slow muscle fibers and fast muscle fibers in our body, and often as power athletes we want to use the fast muscle fibers. And through fast intentions we will recruit the fast ones. It all begins in the brain, and therefore you will train them. So if you always think in terms of speed, you will learn how to better use your fast twitch muscle fibers. The only way you can recruit them is to do your actions fast. So here are some examples of speed exercises that you can perform. Number 1, any compound lift but lighter weight, around 50 to 60% of your 1 rep maximum, and doing them as fast and explosively as you can. We're training for speed now, remember, not strength. Then we have ballistic training, we have plyometrics and medicine balls. It's basically jumping actions and throwing non-bouncing medicine balls that are lightweight. We have barbell squat jumps, 3x5 reps at an intensity of 10 to 30% of your 1 rep maximum in the squat. You can do box jumps, you can do sets of 100-meter sprints, basically any activity with little resistance that will allow you to perform fast actions. Once again, keep in mind, if you do those actions slowly, if you don't do them with explosivity and the intention of speed, you won't improve. It will be useless. Next we have high velocity strength training. This is a tricky one because it trains your strength and speed at the same time, so in the power equation they will train both force and velocity. Therefore they could be thought of as a hybrid of strength and speed training. And the best example I can think of that trains this is the Olympic lifts. This is an excellent example. Like the power snatch, for example, or the power clean. Since you have to lift this weight from the floor and lock it overhead, you will be forced to use speed and strength at the same time because you have a reference point. Otherwise you will fail the lift. Therefore you will train those areas. There are downsides, however, with Olympic lifts because they require a lot of technical proficiency and mobility. But there is also simplified versions you can do with kettlebells instead of barbells, but it's seriously worth to try them because they have a lot of value for the work you put in. Some examples of Olympic lifts are the power clean, the power snatch, the split jerk, the power jerk, and the push press. Those are all exercises that will force you to use speed and strength. There is no cheating in them. Then we have our fourth component, the stretch shortening cycle. This is all about using elastic energy. Fact is that performance will always increase when we utilize stretch forces. To explain this analogy, imagine you want to jump high. As a natural instinct, you would slightly bend your legs, right? As opposed to jumping from a standing position. This is because you want to use elastic energy. And you can learn how to better use this energy by training your stretch shortening cycle. This is achieved through various plyometric exercises. The Golgi tendon organ is located in your muscles and it inhibits them from producing forceful movements to prevent you from injuring yourself. By training your stretch shortening cycle, you will modify the Golgi tendon organ's inhibiting effect and you can therefore produce more power. Keep in mind that plyometric training can be very stressful to the joints, especially if you're not technically proficient. So it's very recommended that you have an adequate strength base before beginning. Some people say 1.5 times the body weight in the squat, others say 2 times, but there's really no accurate guidelines yet. Plyometric is not conditioning workouts, they're not designed to be done often, especially if you're new. The best example I have of a stretch shortening cycle exercise is the depth jump. That is when you stand on a box and you drop down to the ground and immediately upon contact jump again, because you want to use the elastic force. Finally, we have inter and intramuscular coordination and skill. This is the last component. And this is perhaps the most important point when it comes to power development. It is the technical aspect of things, your awareness of your own body and overall mindset. For example, if you are to perform a deadlift, a squat, a box jump, anything, you will do this with fast intentions. This is all about training your intentions. Like I said earlier, you will recruit as many motor units as you can because you are aware that everything starts in the brain. You're aware that if you want to become explosive, you will have to do everything in an explosive manner. You can't just do something slowly and expect to be fast, right? You understand that a box jump with minimal effort will be worthless. You do it with fast and explosive intentions. If you were to perform a deadlift and you thought in terms of speed, like, I need to lift this weight in the shortest amount of time possible, you would inevitably become stronger because you naturally recruit more motor units this way. To better explain this analogy, they did a study on 18 young and healthy individuals. They were all to perform the same exercise on an elbow flexion machine at the same resistance for 6 weeks. However, half the group was told to perform the exercise with high mental effort and the other half was to do it with low mental effort, slowly in other words. Remember, it's still the same resistance for both groups. They found out that the high mental effort group gained around 20% strength, while the low effort group merely gained 2%. This explains how important mindset and explosive intentions are if you want to increase power. So, if you wish to develop total body power, all of those areas have to be addressed in your training. They are all crucial to power sports, but which one is to be prioritized? This completely depends on the nature of your sport. Is it of throwing nature? Do you jump a lot? Do you have to overcome a lot of external resistance or weights? Those things matter. If you're an Olympic weightlifter, high velocity strength will be your most important component. If you're a high jumper, it's probably the stretch shortening cycle or reactive strength, and if you're a sprinter, it's the speed, that is, the rate of force development. You see, it all depends on what you need the most. Some sports scientists should suggest that there is a limit on every component. For example, if you already have enough strength, any further work on strength training will only result in very minimal gains when it comes to explosive power, and it's therefore better to start training the other aspects like velocity training and such. Now, I can't tell you exactly what this limit is, it's based on too many factors. You will simply have to experiment yourself and see what gives you the most gains. So how do you implement this into your training? You can either do them all on separate occasions, or you can divide them into training blocks. If you wish to divide them into blocks, it's probably most effective to start with a maximal training cycle first, and then once you've established a good base, which is often around 6 or 8 weeks, you will go over to a block of rate of force development and stretch shortening cycle, in order to convert all of that strength into usable speed. Then in the third block you will do a mixture of all components to maintain them. However, the purpose of this video was to give you an insight of the different training methods. I will make videos regarding program design in the future.